family, currently living in Australia, took their case of their disabled son being denied rights to the UN. Nazareth, who has a severe form of cerebral palsy, has never qualified for government support, which he needs to be able to function for his required 24-hour care. Because of the current situation regarding this right, having to care for them by themselves, his parents have to spend a lot of time and money dedicated to him just so he will live. One of the biggest issues there, both in today as well as in the past, is the rights that disabled people are allowed. The right is not particularly valued by the government nor general public, and has not been for a long time. The rights of disabled people are often considered unimportant compared to the other issues, but a great number of the population struggles because of this mentality. The right is being violated today because people with disabilities are denied basic rights and are treated much worse than those without a handicap. Because of this discrimination, both the lives of the disabled and the lives of the families are negatively impacted, such as when they need to find health or financial support. If changed for the better, the support behind this right could change the lives of many people, including families like the Awaters. Throughout history, disabled people have faced adversity as a result of the discrimination from the general public and unjust laws. According to the article by the New Statesman, there's a moving account of neglect and cruelty at a long-stay hospital for children with cerebral palsy and other disabilities in Australia in the 1960s. This was a place where children were expected to live without any affection. Nurses were discouraged from cuddling the children, and parents were not allowed to give their children toys or clothes. Little attempt was made to give children any mental stimulation. Some disabled patients were forced to remain at the long-stay hospital, a hardship in itself, and when the nursing staff and equipment is not set up to make the hospitalization as enjoyable as possible, it was made so much harder to live there in conjunction to already being broken down emotionally. Another way disabled people were discriminated historically is detailed in the same article. Black men, women, and children with disabilities ranging from dementia to epilepsy were housed by this institution in poorly ventilated cell blocks and windowless basement rooms with drains on the floor instead of toilets. Those who had beds usually slept two or more to a mattress, lying head to foot. If someone misbehaved, they were tied to their bed or kept in a locked room. Their unfair treatment stems from two reasons, both things that seem unfair to judge someone on. For many of these people, things can control they were born with. The opinions of many people developed as negative towards disabled people, especially in workplace and education system. The article, The Rights of People Who Have Disabilities, states that people spoke up about the discrimination found in employment, education, and other services, and got Australia to pass a law to protect them from this. They even had someone enforcing this law, instead of just loosely saying it's a law and not dealing with it. Without this, people could just have grudges against someone with a disability and not allow them the basic rights that all humans deserve. If Australia listened to other nations and adapted their guidelines, they could turn around the way their right is being handled and make it much better for those having to deal with it on a daily basis. What's worked for other countries will work for them too, and maybe even more effectively. If they just listen to what they're trying to convince Australia to do, they could be massive gains for everyone involved. The other countries that have success with this right and don't have it oppressing disabled people are good role models for Australia. Many other countries offer their advice as they don't have issues in this field and are just trying to help Australia be able to solve this issue of limited rights for disabled people. Much has improved for disabled people in terms of new laws and statements being made, but many times they are still treated as if they do not deserve the same rights as those without disabilities. An article written by the Australian Human Rights Commission states, "The Disability Discrimination Act, 1992, protects individuals across Australia from unfair treatment in many parts of public life. The Act makes disability discrimination unlawful and promotes equal rights, equal opportunity, and equal access for people with disabilities. This example includes unfair, verbal treatment disabled people had once often endured can now be put to a stop due to the Australian government correcting their wrongdoings. The ability to deny someone just based off ability is no longer an option. However, there are still loopholes that allow people to still discriminate. Many organizations have petitioned to get changes for disabled people, and as a result, policies and acts have been ratified. In an article about disability law in Australia, it is stated that the National Disability Insurance Scheme Act 2013 sets up the National Disability Insurance Scheme, which supports people with significant and permanent disability as well as their family and careers. Often, the disabilities warrant insurance, something that is hard to get for the handicapped, but proper support is provided to help to those people to get what they need. By protecting and making insurance more accessible to disabled people, stress and tension is lifted from their shoulders, thus making life that much easier for them. In the same article, the author details, the Disability Services Act 1986 is a detailed guide to the funding and provision of Australia government support services for people with disabilities. Under this act, the Australian government is largely responsible for employment services. The states and territories focus on accommodation and other support services. This other example requires political figures to really look in depth and care for what they are doing to people with disabilities, not just turn a blind eye to discrimination. This additional help for disabled people to find employment that fits their required needs is provided as well. Listening to advice of others to solve the problems of yourself is a useful tactic in any scenario. It's like talking to a master of something that does it successfully, while practice is needed for getting better at it. A better future can be achieved through following the guidelines and examples set by other nations before them, to get constructive criticism that could change the lives of so many people living in Australia, without having to deal with insurance and discrimination and other basic rights that they are denied that make day-to-day living very hard.